our guest co-host. Actually, and not so far around the block. He's in Israel, Tel Aviv to be exact. His name is Evan Kharrazi. Did I get it right?
You got it right.
And
Cool.
see, Ed's smiling. That's why, because he knows I'm name challenged.
He murders names.
You just told me that.
I warned him and says, dude, I am so sorry, but I am terrible with names. Thank God you have a great simple first name. Edward St. Ange, please meet Evan.
Hey, Edward.
Hi, nice to meet you.
We were just doing a little pre-conversation before the show in the green room. We don't serve green M&Ms in the green room, by the way. I think I should probably talk to my agent about that. Just no green M&Ms. And the value of a lot of our discussion today, really, if anything, I know we've had it come up in the show a few times these past few weeks on the mental stress and toll that what everyone's going through, more in particular hospitality professionals, whether they're still currently employed and overwhelmed or whether they're unemployed or underemployed, all that stress associated with it. And to that end, when Evan reached out to us and said, hey, can I join the podcast? I'm like, the live show might be more fun to really bring this to light a little bit more. So Evan, without much more further ado, please, other than where you're at, what inspired you to do this? What is it you're trying to do? And just give us some great details so we can start asking, hopefully, Ed will ask very intelligent questions. I'll just nod my head a lot, but
You'll just sit back and let him do the work.
Pretty much how it goes.
Yeah, it's pretty much that way. I just try to look good on the camera all the time. And I don't do well.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Again, I'm Evan Kharrazi. I'm the founder of Kharrazi Natural Health. I've worked in the hotel industry for several years. I went to Cornell, the School of Hotel Administration, and also have a passion in dance. So I kind of live in two different worlds. But I lost my revenue management job with Highgate Hotels back in March due to the pandemic. And it was a big wake-up call for me. I really started to think about what is my purpose if I have no work right now. And I've always lived with a mindset of service. I've read Isidore Sharp's book, The Founder of Four Seasons, the story of a business philosophy, and knew like I wanted to get in the industry from then on. But I also did have my dance background, and that's an element of service too. So without having work, doing service, I had a lot of time for introspection and decided to really learn and start my own health journey. So with that, I studied at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition and launched my own health coaching business, really tailored to hospitality professionals. We serve so many other people and put the guest first, and it's time to now take care of ourselves. So there is a silver lining to COVID. It's a lot of introspection and putting the work back on ourselves to feel better. We have no choice. So I'm here really to kind of just talk about where I'm at and the services I provide, and just really being the need for a support for those that help others, which is the hospitality industry.
I have a question. How do you get people? I mean, I've read your testimonials on your website of those that you've already worked with and helped and so forth. How do you get people to step over that line of I'm fine, I'm dealing with it, life is life, whatever, to I want support, I need help, I need to open up, and I need some nourishment to myself to make me feel better about going through what I'm going through? How do you get them to transition to that?
So I have like a unique approach. I put movement into my health coaching. I'm a Zumba instructor, and I think health can be fun. And we like to have fun in the hotel industry or the hospitality industry. So that's kind of my approach, is to reel them in with a movement approach that makes it fun. And then we kind of dig deeper from there. What's the cause of the issue? How can we bring together nutrition that's not just what nourishes you on the plate, but what nourishes you off the plate?
Okay. Having just recently brought in a nutritionist into my life to shed some poundage and whatever, because for me, I went through I'll just, sit around on the couch and so forth, to transitioning into, no, I need to get off the couch. I need to start being more active. I need to start controlling more of my diet, what have you. That was a mental, personal choice. I didn't really, other than my wife looking at me going, really, get me motivated to go do stuff. How do you get people that are isolated, that don't have family support or spouse support, and are going through this? I don't have an income, I don't have a purpose that job gives you. How do you get them to realize that this is a effort to self-nourish, to help themselves? How do you get them to begin to think like that? How do you reach out to them and be able to make that mental process change?
I try to connect with them. That's a great question. I try to connect with them. Try to find something that we relate in, whether that's the industry or being a professional. And really, they are in need, and that's when they have a high motivation to change their lifestyle. That's when it really works.
Oh, by the way, Dean Schmidt, I'm sorry, but let me make introductions to the co-host. Dean Schmidt, Evan, Dean.
Hi, Dean.
Hi, Evan.
Dean has his own company, Basecamp MetaSearch Marketing. And Ed, just so you know, the chat box to the right-hand side just mentioned he had to step out real quickly for something. He'll pop back in. And Adele's there. I was just asking Adele why she was in the chat room and not with us as a co-host. Adele Goodman, who is also owner of her own company, Aspire Reputation Marketing. This is Evan.
It's so nice to meet a fellow Zumba.
Yeah.
But I took the license anyway, just in case.
That's farther than I've ever gone.
Pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So, by all means, so in the process of when somebody finally realizes they want this a part of their life, for whatever their level is, whether they're currently working, not working, or partially working, whatever, how do you incorporate that into their lifestyle, where they begin to feel that this is a part of their routine rather than something that's not normal for them?
Right. So it's important that they know health is a process. And that's why these are not instant programs. These are 3 to 6 month programs where you really are with them week to week, and you start to see that a lot of things happen in people's lives over a 3 month period, let alone 2 months. And even now, we can't even, see what's coming next month. So you really start to be with them on their journey and be there as support and also as an accountability partner. And I think that last part is really, really critical to keep them on track.
And Evan, Mr. Fitness himself, the man who has won Olympia twice over, I think, or something. I don't know. I lose track of all the trophies you keep around for bodybuilding. I'm not too sure, but no. Stuart Butler, the gentleman actually referred to you earlier about Mr. Stuart Butler from Field Travel. Stuart, Evan, Stuart.
Hey, I've been listening in, so I just figured I'd join the show. But to clarify, I ran a marathon on March 7th of this year, my first ever marathon. I've run a few halves. I have not exercised one time since then. So I am the antithesis of what you're talking about. I have let this situation overwhelm me to the point where I'm hoping that by the end of today's session that you're going to inspire me to get off my ass and start actually working out again.
I've heard a lot of people talk lately about before you lead others, you need to lead yourself. And there is no mental fitness without some physical fitness. It is so important for your mind, for your emotions, and I think we need it more than ever. And I can say that while I was crazy busy before, I'm still busy, but now I have the time. Now that I'm a solo person, I have the time to make as much time as I need for fitness. And I tell you what, even in this stressful time, I feel more serene than for many years before.
Interesting. And I've done a market research study recently, and we know the burnout issues. We know physical impact, the lowered immunity, exhaustion, all of that really comes as a hospitality professional giving to so many other people first. But we're now seeing a new set of issues working remotely. And one, we can't physically connect with our clients. That's particularly hard with those in the sales and marketing space. The touch and feel. Like I lived in Hawaii for 3 years, and the aloha spirit is the touch and the feel. But we're also seeing blurred boundaries between work and personal now with remote. It's hard to disconnect and say, you know what, I'm done working for today. I now need to focus on my personal.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the hardest points for me. Work from home a good bit, and have 2 kids that are at home 3 days a week, 5 days a week, in school 2 days, and like having that mental separation. I know Melissa, who's probably in the chat room on our team, has done a really good job of
I'm here.
Oh, okay, you just showed up.
She made it. She made it.
I mean, you've done a great job, Melissa, of kind of drawing the line between work and home, and you have practices that you employ to make sure that happens, right?
I absolutely do. And first of all, I'm in my actual workspace, and I feel like of all the things that keeps me sane, it is the physical separation of my work and my home, even though I am working at home.
I'm with you on that, Melissa. I've worked at home for many years, actually. And I envy the people that I remember having colleagues who would brag about their ability to do some laundry, clean house, and do all these other things and multitask while they were working. And I just thought, so are you actually working, or are you doing these other things? I am, and it goes both ways for me. When I am at work, I am in my office like you are. This is my workspace. And when I am not at work, I am not in here, right?
Yeah.
Let me introduce, I'm sorry, Evan, Melissa, who is the brains of Fuel Travel, just so you know. Stuart's the eye candy. Well, actually, Melissa's eye candy. So, I mean, Melissa's really the core of Fuel Travel. Stuart's some ancillary person kind of thing. No. Dean, excuse me, Robert Below. Robert, which, by the way, bedside banister stuff? This is a new look for you in the background.
I have a competing workspace. My wife, I gave to my workspace because she had another Zoom call that had to be a little bit more official.
So you chose the bed backdrop. Okay.
I did. I'm in my remote studio, so I can be anywhere.
And by the way, just to break tempo here, but just Robert, I'm so glad you're feeling better. Seriously, thank you.
So glad you're feeling better.
Evan, so I'm sorry, sir. Robert,
I'm glad you didn't segue to me when he mentioned burnout. So I'm just grateful for that.
Robert just went through a nasty stint of COVID.
Oh my gosh.
Quite nice, yeah.
Yeah, nasty, like
none of the lung stuff, just the fever and chills and stuff like that, which is great.
And to your point, Evan, that's the other thing too. We're talking about the stresses associated with the displacement of hospitality industry and the impacts of everybody on it. But we're also talking about is it Damocles' sword? Am I correct in saying that, Robert? It was a Damocles? Yeah.
Yeah, he's
the sword. Yeah.
I'm old. I'm not that old.
You are that old. You're the one that created the parable. I know. Anyway, so, but that whole overarching that if we go out, we're facing even other things like this. So, where COVID is a threat, and then also having loved ones or those in family that are being hit by that, and that completely alters the ability for normalcy for everyone. Like even if we did what Melissa did, which is enviously good, where you can balance out between the work and the walkout and do the exercises and so forth. Then there's the whole spin cycle of now you have to take care of potentially a family member and or friends that can't take care of themselves, that aren't hospital bound, but they're in between. They need some support, but you're putting yourself at risk. So you have all these tensions and so forth. So how do you add that into what you do? How do you translate that to not just doing stretches and exercise and I feel better for it, but actually mentally changing the focus to making it as valuable as anything else you're doing?
Oh, there's so many things we go through. I mean, I personally came across, I don't know if anyone knows, but the Ikigai concept. It's a Japanese concept, and it's about purpose and daily practice. And that was kind of the beginning of my health journey. And I was really drawn to it because I was trying to find a new purpose, because I was no longer able to work and provide for others in the hotel industry. So another thing we look at is the circle of life. This is an Institute for Integrative Nutrition principle, and it's, you know, every time we meet together is looking at where things in your life are out of synergy, and it's really defining your circle of life and what's out of whack and what is working, and drilling in there. So I think really feeling your best is having synergy with many things that outside of what nourishes you on the plate. You know, home environment, social life, things like that we need to also talk about. It's not just nutrition, it's a balance. It's a balancing act.
So what advice do you give to people, hypothetically? I'm not necessarily talking about myself specifically, but I am. So folks that have the cognitive dissonance of having been, you know, in a position in their life relatively recently where they were eating correctly, exercising, practicing regular mindfulness meditation, and reaped all of the benefits of that, had more energy, more vibrance, more, you know, capabilities, and then has, you know, maybe fallen off the wagon, knows that they shouldn't have fallen off the wagon, knows that they should do that other stuff, but it just, that cheeseburger looks so delicious, and then you got to bite it. So what's the secret?
Oh, I mean, intuitive eating is all about giving in to what your body wants and what you need. So have that cheeseburger, but then get back on track. I mean, I even give myself, I'm a whole foods plant-based kind of following diet, but I give myself a cheat day a week. I mean, my ancestry ate differently than we do now, but I need to observe what biologically what my body needs. So it's not about being perfect. It's about finding what works for you and under this umbrella of bio-individuality. So it's not a one size fits all. It's finding what works for you, which may be different than Robert or Adele, you know.
One of the interesting things, I have a very good friend who's an interventional radiologist, and he's vegan and very, very health oriented, very holistic, kind of approach to his life. But my perspective is to always be very analytical. And he gave me some advice. This was years ago, and basically said, look, because I was having, they're staying with us, and as I was having at the time, every night at like 10:30 to watch Letterman or whatever, a pint of Haagen-Dazs chocolate chip ice cream because it was delicious, right? So, and he's like, wow. Yeah, it is delicious. He goes, you know how much saturated fat's in there? And I'm like, I have no idea. And he's like, well, maybe so. He goes, saturated fat isn't very good for you. But have you ever tried like a non-fat frozen yogurt? And I go, well, it doesn't taste as good. He goes, no, I imagine it wouldn't. But why don't you think of that saturated fat as money sort of thing? Because that happens to have over 200% more. Would you pay? Is it 200% better? And he goes, if it is, do not deny yourself. Have the thing that's 200%. Do your own personal value equation, and that's fine. But if it's not, maybe you should just think of it. And the mindfulness aspect is just being aware of what you're assaulting your body with, right? Or your time, right? Allocating, gee, I've only worked, 17 and a half hours without sitting up on this project, looking up, maybe I should do something else. Sure, that's fine. Maybe there are certain times where that is really important to do it. But if you aren't aware of it and you aren't keeping track, so to try to balance it, and again, maybe it's calculating out money, maybe it's time, maybe it's counting calories. It doesn't really matter. Maybe it's numbers of steps, right? Something that you can measure and evaluate. Because we do so much stuff about how do you evaluate success in marketing? How do you evaluate success in revenue management or profitability? It's the same sort of approach, right? How do you measure what are you using to measure your success? What's your expectation? what's your level of achievement, and do you have a plan to get from where you are to where you want to go?
I love that.
If you
I'm
can
gonna
do
have to
that,
figure out my attribution model now for eating.
exactly. Yeah. And again, I loved his point, because he was kind of like, hey, don't deprive yourself. The classic was where this really came up was our older daughter's christening, because my wife was on it was like an Atkins diet or something like that, right? It was like all the bacon fat you could eat and not, just stupid no carb type thing, really unhealthy crap, right? Just not a stupid diet, stupid fad diet. And so she's standing at the cake table. He's like, why aren't you having cake? And she's like, we discussed this last night. I can't have it. He goes, that's why you're losing weight. You're on the no cake diet. Sort of thing, because you've modified your eating behavior. Now, you haven't replaced it with healthy stuff that's good for your body, but you modified your eating behavior. He goes, just do that and try to be healthy with it and forget the stupid diet. Sort of thing. Just be smart about it, right?
Yeah, I mean,
just lowering your sugar is an amazing thing to do for your overall good health. I mean, I think sugar is, the problem with it is that when you have it, you want more. And the more you have it, the more you want. The more bread and potatoes and pasta you have, the more you want. And
so,
not benefiting your life.
Yeah, and specifically around those foods, your body actually doesn't activate the hormones it needs to say I'm full. It actually is false. And interestingly, like, tying it back to the hospitality industry, is we need to slow down as professionals and actually eat more slowly, or have those periods of reflection or mindfulness meditation. It's critical to reset, because there's so much noise going on. You don't really, if you don't reset, you don't know what you need for your body. And if you're craving sugar, that's fine. But maybe you're overexerting yourself. Maybe you're expending too much energy. So we drill down further.
You bring up an interesting point, because I mean, even having come from restaurants and what have you, eating was a displacement of what you needed to get done. Actually, most of the time you're eating in lieu of something you should be doing, that was a flexible time that somebody can interrupt you, or you had to do something else. You're trying to multitask. It was a function rather than as you say, mindfulness of saying pause, be mindful of what I'm doing. And it carries over to hotels. I mean, if you're a hotel or you're working at a hotel that's large enough to have its own food facilities, cafeteria, what have you, if you're a manager, you're doing it in an interactive way with staff and team, a chance to dialogue with staff and team. So eating isn't really being a thought process, it is a function. If you're able to eat and you're doing it without having to have that consideration, you're doing it as fast as possible and or with distraction, because you're just doing it to be able to get to the next thing you need to do. It is a very accelerated. Matter of fact, my wife was very quick to point out to me when we first started getting together, it's like, you eat fast. And I'm like, yeah, I grew up in restaurants. To me, it was like, okay, I finished doing my set and ready work. We're ready to open the door. Let me snarf something, and if I don't eat it fast enough, one of my coworkers will be like, you want to finish that? So you ate fast. And then in hotels, it was no different. You didn't really sit and say, we're going to have a meal. You sat and said, okay, I got to get this done. I got to eat something, let me go. And then that's when you get into the nibbling and you walk through the kitchen, you start doing food testing, whatever, you start adding those components into your daily life.
Fun fact, I learned this week. I never read this before, but the origination of the word restaurant comes from a French word that means restore. They created restaurants for people to come in and nourish themselves physically and mentally, which is kind of cool. Hospitality in general, that's what we're about. We're about restoring people, especially travel. It's very restorative. So
and that kind of goes to an interesting conversation that came up from some other dialogue that I was having, that restaurants will never truly rebound correctly until we have the ability to exercise our option to be there, because they're not just a food facility. They're not just a function of a type of food or a person that makes the food for you that you like. It's exactly what you just said. The restaurant, the name of it comes from, is the ability to set and Evan, what you're saying, be mindful. You're enjoying a meal with people. You're taking the time to be there, doing what you're doing with people, and eating is an enjoyable process to that, compared to it being just a function. So in that sense, yeah.
You know, I think it was on 60 Minutes, and they were showing that at a school in France, the little children are eating like a 5-course lunch that takes a long time. It even has a cheese course, and they have very, very small portions, and they really sit there and enjoy the camaraderie and the company and the experience. And they're slim. They, like, you look at that classroom, and they were talking about the fact that they're eating like this and they're so slim. And then in our school, unfortunately, very often, what accounts for healthy eating can be tomato sauce on the pizza is considered a vegetable.
That's
And
our potatoes.
you know, and corn, not necessarily,
Yeah.
giving your body what it needs to thrive, and learning a lifestyle of that slowing down and mindfully eating and giving your body a wide variety of nutrients that leaves them satisfied and not needing crap later on during the day.
Being that we are international, that Evan is currently in Israel at this point, it reminds me of a time that I was in Barcelona. And in Barcelona, they're famous for the tapas, the little snacky things. So being the big American that I was, we go into a tapas bar and I'm like, oh yeah, shovel. I need these many. No, if you started talking, next thing you know, 5 of them later, and you have 20 more to go, you're like, oh, because you slowed down. To your point, that was like you're being slow, you're enjoying where you're at, you're eating little bits, and you fill up because you're pacing yourself where you didn't have to eat as much. But me eating fast is like, yeah, you snarf a burger, fries, everything else down real quick. You're still, quote, hungry because your body hasn't caught up with you yet. That you actually ate that much. But all said and done, we're talking around you. I was like, how do you get this in front of people? How do you interact with people? Is it because of the screen to screen? Is it do you have programs that people download, they play back? How do you get them engaged with what you're trying to get them to do?
Unfortunately, it's virtual now, but I do have a few people I've worked with here in Israel, and I take them on a food shopping experience. I show them how it's not that hard to actually cook, and how meal prep, which is like my big thing, meal prep is a life savior. Because if you plan out your day, you're not going to resort to more palatable foods, which are actually not as good for you. So I think at the end of the day, like, yeah, I think your point in the beginning, like, I need to take care of myself first before I can help others. So I need to remain a role model for others. And I think that will show through my actions that it's possible, that you can do this.
How do you measure your activity levels and so forth? Adele, you mentioned that you shared the Zumba, and for me, I can't do Zumba. No, and I'm not really the super athletic type anymore, like Stuart being able to run a marathon. So how do you incorporate your balancing of what you're saying is meal planning and measuring what it is that you're doing to also the activity levels? How do you coordinate that in doing both of those?
Well, I've been active kind of most of my life. I live in another world. I'm a dancer, a professional dancer. So I went to an art high school. I was waitlisted at Juilliard and kind of wanted to pursue that path. So I always wanted to keep movement in my life. And that's kind of my secret sauce in terms of health coaching, is you have to have a movement mindset to make it fun and to kind of switch things up. So what I love to do is body weight. Go out to the outdoor gym and do pull-ups, push-ups, Zumba, even just dancing, honestly, is a life savior. And when I'm dancing and I can see other people enjoying it, it just lights up my day.
It's wonderful in Israel, the way they have the outdoor gyms set up on the beach and everything. It's such a beautiful thing. And about the hospitality business in Israel, if you go to a video of a hotel to see whether you want to choose that hotel for your trip. More than half of the video is gonna be about the breakfast buffet. That is the thing. We have never seen such crazy buffets. It's like dinner. I mean, they'll have complete dinner options, lunch options, breakfast options, everything that the mind can imagine at those buffets. I don't know how anybody can function all day
I'm about to
after reading something like that. It's crazy. So it's very, very lavish the way they do it. But when you walk around, you see the people are slim. Mostly, don't you think so, Evan?
Yeah, I mean, the Mediterranean diet is considered one of the 5 blue zones. Also, why I was intrigued by the Ikigai concept is the Okinawans in Japan live the longest in the world. So looking at what do they eat, but also every Israeli has to go through 2 years of the army, and there's definitely a physical aspect that's required in their lifestyle.
So when you're on video with somebody where you don't have the luxury of being with them in person to help them through this process and so forth, how does somebody, you know, for those that potentially will listen to this now, listen playback, how do they engage with it? What do you use it? You're staring at them on a screen, so obviously they are they limited in what they can do? Do you say, you know, put the camera far away or the phone far away so I can see you in the whole room? Move like this, do like that. What is it that you do interactively with them so that they can begin this process of adding it to their lifestyle?
Yeah, those things. We start with a guided meditation to kind of center ourselves, take out the external noise, go into the coaching fundamentals, and then we'll close with a movement aspect, and we'll try to shift the screen around so I can see them. And it would be yoga, stretching, Zumba, really what they want to do, dancing. So yeah, it's kind of like a trifold. It's nutrition, it's movement, and it's mindset, all in one.
And from the mindset perspective, do you openly dialogue with them? Do you have a pattern of like an agenda list of things that you progress through? How do you mentally begin to get them to think differently through this process? I mean, obviously you can hand out menus and concepts and nutritional guidelines and, you know, exercise regimes and patterns and so forth, but how do you get their mind to to move into that direction and say, this is what I want to do or add to my lifestyle?
It's asking the why and the what. These high mileage questions are very powerful. You kind of just sit back and you keep asking, well, why is that? Like their whole life story, and you're like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, and if they're doing it for other people, it winds up not being they have to figure out how it's meaningful to their life. Now maybe their relationships with other people and things like that, or how they feel about themselves, but it's got to somehow be centered or it's meaningful to them and not just kind of this whole external type thing. Yeah, that seems to hold better for a lot of people if it's if again it's that whole self-awareness and mindfulness and things like that of going, wait, I need this to be part of my life. Because again, if it's not important and they can't prioritize it and they're just doing it for kind of temporary appearances, it's probably not going to stick, right?
Absolutely. You know, it's not, if you're saying, I just want to be skinny, it's easy not to stick with that. But if you're saying, look at people who are really having terrible health issues in the country and throughout the world, and we know that diabetes and obesity and other health issues that deal with stress and inflammation are literally killing people. And to be there for myself, for my spouse, for my children, the rest of my family, and for the people that I can have an impact on and help them in their lives, the people I can influence. You know, you only have this one life. This is the time, if there's ever been a time to say, let me throw away the things that are stealing the enjoyment from my life, and how can I give myself the life that I deserve in the years that I have? And I think that that's so important, is to start, with the why. And yes, I think it's very intriguing to ask. So what are you here for? What is it that you want? And what else? And what else? And what else? And what else? And people will come forth, and if they just write it down and look at what they wrote every day, maybe keep a journal, I think that that's really helpful too. And also, here at the end of the year, it's a perfect time to say what I want to leave behind in that 2020, and how I want a vision. What's the vision that you have for how you want 2020 to be?
Yeah, and typically I'll start with a vision board exercise. I did one back in February before COVID, and I put a Star of David on my vision board, and I finally made it happen. I manifested it by coming to Israel through a way of dance. But I think you bring up a lot of great points, and it's so important to ask people who, don't forget, like, who loves you, and that brings motivation right back in, because health is a process and there's going to be dips, but it's them remembering who loves them and who they love. And I have a great story. I heard about a surgeon, and he was going to treat somebody, and this guy just went through so much, and he goes, he's an older man, and he goes, I'm just kind of done with my life. No more. Like, this surgery won't really mean much to me. Then there's another gentleman that comes across, this surgeon, and he's like, I need the surgery. My kid is disabled, and I need to live for him, because if I'm not here, then he will not be able to function day to day. I am his caregiver. And so the surgeon went back to the other gentleman and goes, let me tell you this story. This dad that needed to be here for his kid day to day. So people need to remember that they're critical in other people's lives. Absolutely, everyone is.
So from a perspective of engaging with you and so forth, I mean, I went to your website, and you do have a great diversity of people that you've engaged with. And credits to you that you're not just that one type of person is reaching out to you for whatever, that it's across the board, the types of people that are looking for your help with this. Is this pre-programmed, or is every person uniquely talking to you? Like, okay, if somebody wants to do what you're saying to do and they want to reach out to you, is it like, okay, well, here's my pre-recorded stuff here, and when you get through it, if you want personalization or something, then you come here. It's all just, they talk to you, you figure it out, you guys work it out together, is what it usually happens?
Yeah, so my program is integrative nutrition, what feeds you on and off the plate, as well as a movement therapy. But outside of that, people come in with different issues. So everything is live interaction with them. It's all one-on-one, and it's truly tailored to what they need.
Can I ask you something? For the hospitality people out there right now who are working, the general managers who see that they have an incredibly stressed staff trying to manage their own personal life stress, but also maybe handling multiple jobs, maybe having less pay but more hours because of the circumstances in hotels today. And what can a general manager or a hotel owner do to help ease the stress of the way the hospitality workspace is right now? What can they do to make things easier for them?
That's an amazing question. I started in housekeeping, and just knowing that I can get a 30-minute break for lunch, or I can bond with my team, or the turnover in hospitality is unreal. So they're also pressured to, constantly fill and train. So I really think it goes back to the golden rule. which is really what drew me into the hotel industry, was Isidore Sharp's book, as a founder of Four Seasons, and how you need to treat people how you want to be treated, and allowing employees to take their breaks, not have to go and take care of a guest, and really also saying that working 10 hours or 12 hours, I don't encourage that. Maybe you're not efficient enough, or maybe we need to add somebody else on. So I think productivity is such a hot topic, particularly with analytics that we have today that we didn't have before. But it's knowing, like, just really being in tune with your staff. I hope that somewhat.
I think that's so true. You really do need to have enough people. People shouldn't have to work a 10 or 12-hour shift. It happens all the time. It's like they're volunteering for those extra hours. And we really should take better care of them and just appreciate them. And maybe we should have some nice Zumba music playing in the staff lounge. That will make everybody feel better, don't you think?
Well,
Or belly dancing music.
I happen to have graduated from Cornell a couple years before, just a couple years before you. And like you, my first job out of school was with Four Seasons, right? So, see, get your bingo cards, guys. I'm not on the show that often, but I can pull them out. Gotta plug those guys.
Evan, just so you know, Robert was the one that overbooked Bethlehem. That's how far back we're talking.
But, exactly. But Izzy in the early 80s spoke extensively, again, because the company was growing very rapidly at that point. It was a small Canadian hotel company and really transitioning more into what it's doing now. But he'd go into general managers and executive chefs, concierge, didn't matter. Who's the most important person in this building? And it'd be like, oh, the general manager. He's like, no, it's the housekeeper. Because if the housekeeper doesn't do their job, everything stops immediately.
Not a hotel.
Yeah, if the general manager doesn't do their job, you might be able to get by. They missed the meeting, they didn't do this, the budget's late, that sort of thing. But you are not impacting the guests in the same way. So the way they set up and dealing with owners back at that point in time was very difficult, because there was actually a major recession in 1984, right? Which was a big crunch. But they allowed housekeepers, once you worked, I can't remember if it was 90 days or something like that, you wound up getting a certain number of nights staying at Four Seasons, right? And this got very, very expensive, right, for the owners, giving all these comp rooms to basically as staff rooms. But Izzy was adamant about it, and you had to do it. He's like, look, these are the most valuable staff in the hotel. Socioeconomically, in most cases, most people who work for Four Seasons are not Four Seasons target clientele flat out anyway, right? Just the regular mid-management staff normally can't afford to stay at a Four Seasons. So he goes, they need to understand the guest experience. And to do that, if they do it themselves, not only is it a tremendous perk and they can take pride and show their family and experience the whole thing, but they experience knowing what the bottom line is on the guest experience as well. He goes, that's how you have to do it. And it was the embodiment of the golden rule. And it wasn't just, well, we're going to treat our investors well, and we're going to treat our suppliers well. It's everybody. It has to apply to everything, because it breaks down if you don't do it that way. And that's what made that company great. I mean, that one, Izzy's perspective on taking that approach.
Kevin, I think your message right now is very strong, because there are categorically three people. I'm sure there's much more, but just in general terms, there's those that are burnt out, that have maintained their jobs but are being completely overworked, like we're talking about, assuming roles that they didn't have before because of the reduction in staff and so forth. You have those that are partially employed or fully employed but partially paid, whichever way you want to look at it. They themselves are stressed out because of the lack of contribution financially that whatever they're doing is happening with. And then you have those that are literally out of the mainstream right now, that have lost their positions, that aren't able to replace those positions, and lose that identity aspect of having a position that they loved. And there's a lot of people that are losing the ability to come back into hospitality. They're finding other positions, other roles in other industries because of the disheartening of not being able to find the position, but also they need to put something on the table and they need to find a job that can do that. So you have those major categories of people. Here we are in the holiday period, which is supposed to be a reflection of positive introspection, review of our life, and so forth. And this is a year nobody wants to remember. Nobody wants to think back fondly of this year, even if they had highlights. It's still a tough year for everyone. So with all that in mind, the need to put some physicality balance, nutritional balance, some positive self value into what you're doing, I think is a very strong message right now that needs to get out in front of not just those in hospitality, which is what we're trying to do with this conversation, but also in general, where it is like Melissa does, close the door. This is my work. Open the door. It's not my work. It's balancing the things that you're doing. And, Stuart needs to go back and run his marathon, even if he passes out the first 12 miles.
Two of us.
Well, I will say this. One thing I think everyone should get is an accountability buddy on any of this stuff, whether that's a paid professional or a friend or family member. That there is zero chance I would have ever ran that race had Melissa not been my accountability buddy. We trained together, like not physically together. We lived in different parts of the city, but we would every time we did a run, we would send it to the other person. We would check in. We would encourage. There were times when there were tears on both sides, and we thought we wouldn't do it. And without each other saying, "You can do this," and "You're going to let me down," and "I don't want to let you down," we would never have done it. Well, I wouldn't. Melissa probably
I
would
don't
have.
think so either.
How did you verify Stuart's actual workouts if you didn't see them, Melissa? Just
Run deeper. Run.
But that's the other tip that I would give people, like whether it's nutrition and logging, like you talked earlier, Robert, about using tools like that you were doing with money and things like that. When I was really hardcore on my nutrition and exercise, I would use Runkeeper for my exercise. I would use MyPlate for my nutrition, and I would log it before I did it, because it made me mindful of what I was consuming. So before I ate, I would go and look up the, not just the calories, but all of the nutritional value of anything I ate. And there were several times when I would make better incremental decisions because I'm like, is it worth it? Is that worth it for me?
The Count Chocula versus the Fruit Loops for breakfast. I know, Stuart. Those are important days. The most important breakfast of the day.
Yeah. Exactly. But that really helped me. So writing it down, having goals that you're mindful about how you're contributing towards or away from those goals, and then having an accountability person or people that you say, this is the goal I've set and I want you to help me get there. You're a part of this and you need to make sure that I don't let you down and I don't let myself down. Those are the keys to me to success.
What I find so important is also just feeding my mind with the right information. And like I'm addicted to Audible. I listen every single day at least minimum of an hour. And I love to listen to books about healthy eating, or like there's a guy a doctor in Toronto called Jason Fung with many wonderful books, including the obesity code and the diabetes code and the cancer code, and the way he talks. But there are so many other books about fat and sugar and salt and eating vegetarian and all of these things. And I just putting that talk in my head is setting me up that tomorrow I'm going to have a better day and I'm going to make better choices because it's on the front of my mind. Very often we have a goal, but because we don't talk about it every day, we're not, we forget why we're doing it. And just putting a little nice verbiage in your head and saying, yes, this is how I think, makes a huge difference for me.
Yeah. And
price tag on your health.
Oh, go ahead.
It is the most important thing that you have. Without it, you are nothing.
Indeed.
So think about that when you're prioritizing what you're going to do for the day, what nutrients you're going to put in your body, and what you're going to feed your mind. Because all together. All of it's important.
So the fact that my only source of information for the last 9 months has been the real Donald Trump on Twitter is probably not a healthy thing, right?
I wouldn't say that's a good benchmark. No.
Okay.
So, Evan, just to geek out for a second, there's a platform that I'm going to send over to you called Odium, which I think would be, I know that it lacks a little bit of the personalization of you being one-on-one with somebody, but it does give you broadcast capabilities of what you're doing. It can put you on like Hulu, Netflix, and stuff as a subscription channel. I notice a lot of people are using this for fitness, wellness, awareness, nutrition. Whatever pre things you can do to incentivize people to begin something, and then to reach out to you to continue that or create the momentum that wants them to engage with you. It's a pretty neat thing. Plus, it's also a great way of getting a larger audience with you and so forth. So I'll send the information over if you're interested with it. It's pretty cool. Just kind of geeky thing. But anywho, I know I'd only asked you for a half hour, and we're rolling around to an hour, which is our typical like, yay, low time. You're more than welcome to hang with us and everything else like this. I just didn't want to go over. I want to be mindful of your time if you had, because it is what now 7:20-ish your time.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Hugs, Samaya. Happy Hanukkah.
Yes, happy Hanukkah, by the way. Details to find you, website, what have you. I'll always have them in the show notes, but where can they find you?
Okay, you can find me. I have a brand new website. It's evankharrazi.com. EVANKHARRAZI. And that last name I know is a little funky. I'm half Persian, so that's where that side of the family is from. I just want to say that it's been a pleasure to talk to all of you and actually reconnect with some hospitality people, and just remember what inspires you, stay motivated, and just really find an accountability partner. And as this industry rebounds, soon, hopefully, make sure you take care of yourself now and set up the process so that when we are full speed, you already have those habits in place. It's a priority now, so you can take care of it then.
Evan, you do realize you do not have to go. I just wanted to make sure that you didn't.
Okay, I'll stick around.
I was like, we asked for only a half hour, and then an hour later we're still chatting about the. It's like I just want to make sure that if you needed a nice way of bowing away, that you have, but you're more than welcome to hang. Because I know Stuart didn't want to lose track of this topic either. You had mentioned, Stuart, that you want to make sure.
And we need to warn him before he decides whether he's staying or not that the gloves now come off.
Yeah. Quality of the show drops precipitously normally at this point. So
you need sharp elbows sometimes. People start talking to be like, "Stop! I gotta say something." So yeah.
I think the point that Evan brought up before, though, is very important. That the turnover rate in hotels for employment is so high, and I never really hear anybody talking about what are we going to do to keep that cost down, because I think it is a big cost. And I only say this because I signed up for the HSMAI Business Acumen certification course online, and it starts to show different statements, different financial statements, and I nearly passed out when I saw the number of the thousands of dollars that were being spent each year by this sample hotel for the cost of retraining and getting new people.
Huge. Yeah, recruitment, onboarding, training, recurrent training, just skills. So yeah, supervision. It's a huge cost.
Why are we not doing something about this? I mean,
I think it's partially inherent into the nature of the business, because even back in the day, I used to refer to people acquiring success in hospitality as kind of going through SEAL team training. Purposely, you shove 1,000 people in for 10 people to come out.
I was just about to bring up David Goggins.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
No. I mean, a man that can run like 100 miles in 24 hours or something crazy.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we purposely built the infrastructure of how we operate is built on those that it should succeed do because that they survived. And it's the medical profession does the same thing with their intern program. You know, they shove them through these ridiculous time cycles and ridiculous work requirements under the auspices that they, by rote, understand what they need to do, regardless of their physical ability of acuity, whether they're awake or half asleep, because they've gone through the repetitions and the trial by fire so much. Those in hospitality, it's about being able to light it up where I mean, we used to have famous stories where we'd go out and party our bejeebers off until 4 o'clock in the morning, and then we're bright and crispy at 5 a.m. cracking open the restaurant. You know, we used to be priding ourselves in our ability to just like be the warrior, and you know, and eventually that gets eroded away. That either you succeed in it and raise a level where you don't have to do that, or you fell off of it and you're no longer in the industry. So it's kind of built into the mindset in a bad way. That we go through.
To a degree, right? But I don't think that means that it's something we shouldn't tackle. Same as the conversation.
No, I definitely agree with that.
Reviews, right? How there's a 75% satisfaction rating, and people just think that's okay and the best we can do. And as Adele will tell everyone, you can make incremental changes to improve that situation. And it's the same with recruiting and retention. There's a bell curve of properties in terms of how well they do at culture and empowerment and just creating fulfilling work environment for employees at every level. And you know, I can look at different clients, and from the very beginning, how they approach marketing, how they approach a lot of things, I can tell what it's probably like to work for them. Mm-hmm. And we've got clients that have retained staff, you know, housekeepers for 30 plus years in the same position. And if you talk to these people, they love it so much that 30 different, literally the hotel my son works at, 30 different people from the same family have worked at that hotel over the last 30 years. Mm-hmm. And that says a lot. If you're willing to recommend it to your family members, that says that they're doing a good job. But then on the flip side, there's people that churn and burn, and they have such a high attrition rate. And then they think, well, it's so expensive, so I'm going to pay these people less because they're going to leave me in 6 months. And it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because then you start treating people like replaceable, and they become exactly what you pay them to be. And so,
well, one group's investing in their resources, and the other's not. It's just disposable, disposable resources, right? I'll just get it, go through. Doesn't matter. Interchangeable. I need a head to clean the room tonight. And that's it. And we'll drive off the bridge when we come to it the next, the next day.
The employee is not a body. It's a human being that should, if inspired correctly with proper leadership, will feel that they know that they're the most important person. They know how their efforts and everything they put towards what they do is the reason their company will be able to grow and thrive. If they don't understand, if the ownership and the management don't understand what that human contributes, and that their mindset is so important, that they are doing their work with love and with devotion and imagining that they're building a cathedral, so to speak, in meaning, I'm not just building a wall. I'm not just cleaning a room. I'm creating an incredible experience, and that incredible experience for that guest cannot happen without my devotion. And so I am so important to the financial success of my company, and they appreciate me for it. And, the exactly same work that needs to be done to get better reviews will also make the employees feel better.
And I worked in revenue management, and, that is when I truly saw how the whole hotel goes together. And I feel like, line level employees versus top level management, they don't see, there's a huge disconnect. They don't see that
disconnect.
Like there's actually a full system in place. And when one thing falls out, the rest, is not great. So it's like bridging, it's bringing people together from all levels. And I think too, back to Four Seasons, that open door policy, having engagement with a general manager, with a line level employee, and feeling like they are part of something really valuable. So
to Stuart's point also is that you could tell by the way they market is the way they treat their staff. If they treated what I call the Disney line mentality, which is if you don't like the rate and the price, get out of line because somebody else behind you wants it. They also have the same mentality with their staff. If not you, then the next person. And they treat their teams like that. And you really just, I mean, I paused and there's been people I don't want to work with going, I don't like what you guys are doing. But to that, I want to put a twist to it with Dean. Dean, you made a point earlier, and it's been persistent. You've worked remote for a very long time. And kind of lending to something that Evan mentioned, how do you reach through the screen? How do you create those connections with your coworkers and the people that you are responsible with? And two, I know you're running your own business now compared to when you're working for somebody, but how did you create that ability to have that personalization that felt like you were being supportive or supported with the people that you were in with?
That's a little more challenging now than it used to be, actually, because it used to be that you, on a regular basis, would fly to whatever corporate office you had or regional office you had, and you would physically meet with people. I think that is the one thing that I miss most about now working in an office is just that general around the water cooler conversation of, hey, how is your cat doing? Or did your kid have a good concert last night? And those kind of things. And so you have to have those conversations. You still have to have those calls that aren't a call as part of a management meeting. That's not what the call is for. This is just a call for us all to, forgive my French, shoot the shit and, hey, what's going on in your world today? Because that's an important part of our business, of our camaraderie with everybody else that we're working with. Yeah, Zoom is great, or whatever variation of that you're using, that's great. But there's a reason that Zoom and WebEx and GoToMeeting didn't take over the world even before COVID, is because we still wanted to have that physical contact. And the advantage of having that physical contact, I'm there talking with you right now, is the fact that that's what you are doing. That is what you are doing, right? Whereas if I'm on a Zoom call with a bunch of people, guess what? I'm probably multitasking. I'm probably doing something off the side. You may have noticed me switch screens here. You can probably see the light changes on my face. That's because I'm glancing at my email real quick, right? And yeah, I know the horror of that. It happens, right? That's the reality of what happens when you're working in this type of environment. So yeah, I think if you have to work remotely, and that is the only way that you can work with people, don't always be about business. Be about, hey, you're a human being, and I'm going to talk with other human beings that are a part of my group, that are a part of my tribe here. Some companies do it better than others. There are some companies that I've seen that are not very adept to working with remote people. They're more adept to, I'm in a cubicle and I can stand up and talk over my cubicle or catch you in the hallway to have conversations with you. Some companies do that better than others. I think with COVID, companies have learned to do it better than they did before, but not all companies have always been that good at it.
The Fueligan team is very active in our group Skype chat. That has become the water cooler for sure.
There you go. Yeah.
Find all the random topics that would have been discussed over cube walls in the random parts of the day now in Skype.
Wait, Melissa, don't you miss Stuart dropping by your cube to ask for the TPS report every day, though?
I do. Now he just Skypes me and asks me for them. It's fine.
Oh, I see it.
You know what? I love that you call yourselves Fueligans. I think that really speaks to, it's a club, it's fun, it's who we are. We're a special inside group, and it bonds you.
And you all embrace it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know what's interesting about that? It wasn't a corporate push down. It came from, I don't even remember who came up with it, but someone just kind of threw it out one day and it just stuck. And it's kind of evolved in its meaning over the years. But we're very deliberate about who we hire from a DNA perspective. They have to meet the Fueligan criteria. And I've talked about it on the show before, but the very first thing you do when you try to become a Fueligan is you have to jump through some crazy hoops, which include tweeting us a meme of Steve Harvey, baking us goods and bringing them if you're lucky enough to get an in-person interview. And we have all these little hoops because we know the kind of people that are going to enjoy doing that kind of weird stuff are going to be the ones that are going to fit into our team. So it's It's fun. We had a
Well, but that's the
Melissa
important
said we
thing.
had-
You hire the person, and then you teach them the skills they need.
Oh yeah,
right?
well,
That's the bottom line.
attitude and aptitude over experience every day of the week, like
Right.
every single day. But we just recently hired someone. She's been with us about 3 weeks now, and she's the newest Fueligan. And we were on the team chat yesterday, and I think the debate was about, I don't remember. We've had a few. We had one Lord of the Rings versus Star Wars, the best third movie in any series of movies. There's been some weird stuff going on the last couple of weeks. There was a whole debate about 9-candle versus 7 candles for menorahs. There's been all kinds of weird debates. But
for a Hanukkah, it's 9. For a menorah, it's 7.
This was the conversation we had yesterday. The new person, Nicolette, she just all of a sudden in the middle of the conversation said, "I'm so happy to be a Fueligan." Just like it was a spontaneous, now I get it. Like this is a club. You guys are family, and I want to be a part of this because it's inclusive. There's no nonsense that goes on about excluding people. Everyone's welcome to be a Fueligan. They just have to have the right attitude, and they can be a part of the club.
Melissa,
I've been
if you're trying to escape, please pull on like your left earlobe. Escape because he's trying to escape the cult.
Yeah, I did say club, not cult. I'm pretty sure it may have been a Freudian slip.
So, with that in mind, and the fact that Robert is with us, Evan, so Robert puts a very excellent curated list together per week, and ironically, this week, way ahead of normal schedule. I mean, a whole day before we had the show, I had the list. That's astronomical.
If we're gonna have a Cornell Hotelli on, I mean, there needs to be a certain level of preparation and respect given to that. Come on.
I mean, just so you know, Evan, sometimes Robert will send us his list in maybe the middle of the show. Just
No. I don't think it's ever been after 10:45 in the morning, Central Time. So,
which is
15 minutes aside. Yeah. So.
But anywho,
I think we need to talk about Airbnb.
Yeah, I know that Robert's not a big fan of this, but Stuart, sorry, dude. Airbnb is valued more than Marriott and Hilton combined right now.
No.
And a bunch of other hotels.
And Hyatt and Choice and Wyndham and
Mm-hmm.
Accor and IHG. Well, yeah,
Totally.
pretty close. Yeah. Yep.
So
the world has lost the plot, man. They have totally lost the plot on this.
I agree with you.
This is what happens when you let random people invest in the stock market. This is what happens.
Only the elites should. You're right, Stuart.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, all the experts had it here, and then like Yahoos like me that went and incidentally got a bunch of Disney stock about a year ago, and I'm very happy today after yesterday's announcements. We go and buy what we think we know, or what we're passionate about,
Right.
which I guess works. But there's no correlation in today's world about what something's really worth and what its stock market value is. It's going to hit this over the next.
Just out of craziness.
We're investing in the hype right now. That period. That's what we're investing.
When you say
That's exactly why all the state players did it.
That's the stock market. That's what it is.
But okay, taking the word as hype, but just saying situationally right now, with all the pent up frustration of not being able to travel, let's face it, the brands have really done a terrible job of doing anything that value supports brands. I mean, honestly, they're just falling short by far. Somebody's looking for some sort of like direction to all this. Like, wow, is Airbnb going to be that thing? Like now people are going to do this long-term stay stuff, stay in one place, radiate from that one location, not do this, sort of hotel room hopping things. Group business and corp business is in a floundering right now at best. Is this the salvation aspect of hospitality in the near future, which is why it amped so much people's perception of the value of it?
No, I don't. I mean, I think that's part of it, right? But you haven't seen the same excitement around other travel brands. And if that was the primary driver, you would expect to see Expedia and Booking and Marriott and Hilton's stock price going up significantly overnight too, and it didn't really happen. This is a hype thing. Airbnb has been phenomenal at PR. They've always done really, really well. I mean, don't get me wrong, they have a phenomenal product. They built the most frictionless experience both from the consumer and the host perspective. but they have a fundamental problem, and that is inventory. And then still, until they solve that problem, I just can't get behind this valuation. I think it's inflated, and I think that they're going to get a lot more demand. There's no question, right? The fact that, and we talked about this about 3 weeks ago on the show, Airbnb still, the vast majority of people that travel have not stayed in an Airbnb. Now it skews obviously younger, but the majority of people still prefer a hotel experience. We as a hotel industry have helped prop up Airbnb and turn it into this big bad monster that's threatening all of us. But the reality is, it's about the same size as Marriott from a booking perspective, right? It's not like going to dwarf everyone else, as this valuation would believe. But the way they get inventory is by definition going to be limited. In the stock market traditionally values things based on growth potential. They
Why
have
do
a
you think
little
that?
growth
They still
potential.
have growth potential. I mean, I'm going to push back a little bit.
But it's not exponential.
It's not. But okay. But let's separate the valuation, right? Because that's right. That's just the stock market frothing, and you can go across a lot of other industry sectors and say, what the hell is going on with your PE ratio, or whatever method of traditional share valuation is out the window, right? I mean, that's just a separate issue. The company's very well managed. I mean, Chesky has really done an exceptional, certainly being a design-driven company and certainly understanding, hosts and guests, bringing in Chip Connolly to teach them hospitality and what's important. Critically important move for those guys. But they also did everything properly during the pandemic, and they had some pretty bad mistakes at the beginning, right, when they were growing. But boy, they weren't this defensive. A little bit at the beginning, like, oops, we didn't do anything wrong. All of a sudden they were, oh no, we got to embrace this stuff. Let's go and do it. Now, again, they did a lot of other things for governmental tax payments where the strategy was completely avoid paying anything you don't have to. It's coming, but why? Why sign up early to pay a bunch of money that isn't mandated? But Chesky and those guys through this pandemic have done a masterful job. I mean, they cut 25% of their staff. They got out of a lot of ancillary businesses, which were distractive and things like that, focused on the core, did all the things you want to do when you're battening down the hatches. And they built this story, right? And they've got a couple things that are going for them. One, most people haven't stayed in Airbnbs. They have very strong net promoter scores and people who recommend it to others, right? That's still very, very strong. So that bodes well for continued organic growth. The other side of it is 93% of their business comes direct, right? That they aren't completely dependent on Google and OTAs and things like that. So structurally, and that didn't happen by accident, right? Sort of thing at all. So these were all strategies that they kind of laid out. So they've got good fundamental. Now, do they justify $100 billion? Yeah. Is their valuation, should Airbnb's valuation be equal to Booking.com plus Expedia? I don't. Should it be more than Booking.com? Probably not, right? I mean, there's not a lot of evidence for it. So we'll see what happens. And again, they, right now, midday, there's a little bit of selling, but they still haven't quite dipped below yesterday's close, right? Things are hanging in there. So, we'll see if it goes. But these guys managed, instead of being valued with all the hotel guys, they are now valued as a tech company and in with the OTAs and those margins. So there's just a whole thing. And all of a sudden they just got access to this is a technical financial term, a shit ton of cheap capital, because they can now trade that share price at the 100 billion value. You want to go acquire something? We can trade you some Airbnb stock. What do you think? And that's not very expensive for them.
Yeah, they're going to do fine. I think you make a good argument, but I think we agree that they're slightly overvalued right now. But I think for me, they have been phenomenal. Every step, every decision, every pivot they have made has been almost perfect.
Yep.
And at some point, that's not going to be the case. Either you know, someone's going to cash out now because they just became a billionaire overnight and say, yeah, I can go retire, right? They're going to lose some key folks potentially. But at some point, you know, in my mind, Airbnb has always been 2 or 3 bad stories away from a PR nightmare that could destroy their business. You know, the fact that they're getting more popular is going to drive demand, both on the consumer side and the host side. They've now gone from this kind of fringe company in hospitality to a mainstream company that majority of people probably will try over the next couple of years because they're going to be on the Today Show and they're going to be on the, you know, mainstream media all the time, especially right now because of the IPO. So it legitimizes them in the eyes of some people that may have been a little reluctant to try it before. But that also means there's going to be opportunists come in that are going to try to host, try to maximize their return. And I think you're going to see the quality of the product maybe is going to decline in certain areas. You're going to see potentially more risky behavior happening in potentially some stories. And you've seen them in the past where someone's got cameras in the room or someone gets murdered or they 2 or 3 of those stories back to back that get high profile enough. The media picks up. This company is destroyed. And
but they also have a lot of the structures in place to, and will those things happen?
I don't know.
Yes, but again, it's going to be so far out of here's what our company, you know, here's what our company stands for. Because again, a lot of the social proof aspect of, you know, kind of what's driven TripAdvisor and everything like that is, yes, you want to have, you know, the super hosts and things like that who have very, very high ratings, who do a great job. It's structured to be, if you do a good job, you're going to get a higher ADR, right? And you're going to be more profitable. You do these things right. So they've aligned the incentives with the rewards pretty effectively for these folks. And the bad behavior, all of a sudden you're going to have a pretty big company. And again, in shutting down a lot of these house parties, shutting down a lot of the COVID parties, they are all over. I mean, they structurally put onto their platform that if you checked out, you could not rebook that same property within whatever it was, 48 hours, right? You had to have that downtime, right?
I think
hotel companies did not do that, right? And they didn't necessarily have to do it because they could put people in different rooms. But again, they didn't go out there and say aggressively, hey, you know what, we're making sure these things are spaced out and here's what we're doing.
I think the part we're discounting to this is the fact that now for all the people that are on that squirrely edge, all of a sudden they're getting their uniforms with the logos on it going, shit, we're legit. You know? And a lot of people that used to be on that now they can walk around and be the Airbnb police and so forth. And just for the record, Stuart, when you do your IPO and Melissa turns into a billionaire, she will not leave you. I know this. Okay, she will hang with you even after she becomes a billionaire, just because y'all are like, you know, kindred spirits and stuff. But the idea of Airbnb, you're changing. The game has changed. Okay. It is not just them being the outside fringy of, or the renegade wannabes, or the upstart community, global economy thing. It is now they are a player in the space. To Robert's point, what do we want to buy? How do we want to make this happen? How do we legitimize this? How do we standardize this? Because they have to prove to the people that have paid the coin to be owners now what the heck we're doing with that. And what are we going to make out of that? And you look at the Domio models and so forth, where all of a sudden our society has changed. A corporate traveler, whatever I emerge to be, isn't going to be the road warrior hotel hopper as much maybe anymore. Maybe I go to a place and stay a week person, and now corporate world wants to just have a relationship with an Airbnb entity or a permanent rented corporate place that they put those people in for the week that they're going to be at the mothership.
There's
go ahead.
There's also technology in place where a corporate traveler is incentivized to find the cheapest deal and will get a rebate. I don't know, it's a reward back in cash value for the difference. So they're like, technology is catching up too to give these corporate travelers the incentive.
Yes, companies are doing that. They're saying, here's the per diem. And if you say, you know, your per diem's whatever, $250 a night, 120, doesn't matter, broken out by the market. You can stay for less than that, fine, you pocket the difference. We're good with that.
Yeah, but some corporate policies just they restrict where you can stay, right, from a risk mitigation standpoint.
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely. Duty of care is a huge aspect. But Airbnb was all over that 5 years ago, right? They figured out the settlement process to make it easier for corporate travel managers and travel, major TMCs to take the billings and to seamlessly have that pass through just like anything else.
Let's take a target market for just a second. Let's say Midtown New York, because Adele can talk to this all day long. We can talk a little bit about it, not near as well as Adele can. But so now you have companies that have decentralized themselves to some degree. There's a lot of hotels. 15% of the hotels in Midtown alone have already been projected to not reopen as hotels. So they're off the board. For the hotels that are still in existence, and they're looking for business and a corporate office who kept their mothership downtown because of the contract they have for the space or whatever, they're going to have people come back to the mothership, but they're not going to permanently stay. They come to a hotel that's struggling and say, either we're going to buy a block or buy a segment of repeated business with you at a certain rate, or they're going to go to an Airbnb model of some place that they can literally be the person that controls it, saying, look, we're always your number one guest. We're going to do this mainline-based business. There's a whole group segment potential that Airbnb hasn't truly tapped towards yet that could come into market as this void of business recirculation begins to happen, because some companies will not grow back to their office space again. Some entities may not even stay in their current space because of the cost constraints about being in a New York location versus a Charlotte location. And just say, oh, actually, Charlotte's getting really expensive. Maybe not that one. But those kind of things. There's a whole movements and shifts going. And now that Airbnb is, quote, legit, okay, now all of a sudden they are a player in that space. They can go to some of their super hosts that built buildings or took over buildings and ran them for those very entities, saying, you are now the ABC Corporation's corporate offices. This is your flat rate whatever. You're that. And now they turn into an air donut, like a donut.
You're leaning into what could be their downfall, right? So I don't know if you've ever heard of this brand, but there was this phenomenal brand a long time ago that did a really good job treating the consumer the right way, aggregating reviews, being an advocate for other people. I think it was called TripAdvisor. And then they ended up going public, and they completely lost sight of what made them unique and made them valuable to the consumer. And they started chasing profits because they had to make decisions which were in line with their shareholders' demands, right? They had to show growth, and they completely failed in every pivot they ever made because every decision was against the consumer and for the shareholder in the short term, which ended up backfiring. And if Chesky and the guys at Airbnb decide now that they have to do what the stock market demands and their shareholders demand, that could be the problem for them.
I don't think they'll do that though, because they've positioned themselves. They only got $3.5 billion out of this. They didn't sell a massive portion of the shares and everything like that. So they've still got a lot of control of what hurt TripAdvisor was kind of the acquisition originally by Expedia and then the spinoff there. And that was really, kind of undercut Coffer's ability to really kind of,
But
make his own narrative.
When it spun off, it was at around $30, and then it went well up, to 110. It was at that point quite a bit later than it started to tank.
Yeah.
What amazes me about the whole Airbnb IPO thing is that it still is a lodging company, right? That's ultimately what we're talking about in the middle of COVID, where nobody's traveling, and we all have these problems with no traffic, no volume. In the meantime, and so who's using it right now is my big question to start with. And by right now, I mean right now. In the meantime, the day prior, another company had an IPO, DoorDash, which did pretty well, by the way, but not as well as Airbnb. And I'm looking at the other one thinking, holy crap, everybody's using DoorDash now. That's used
stock market's based on future.
But the question is, are they going to use it as much after the COVID is over?
Maybe not, but we're not there yet. So I think about what's going on right now. And to me, DoorDash right now should be more value, have a higher value than an Airbnb.
It's making more money today than it probably ever will in the rest of its history, because 3-4 months from now, when hopefully vaccination has been deployed successfully, the number of people that order DoorDash is going to decrease overnight, and there's no recovery.
But if I'm a day trader, which most of these people who bought that Airbnb stock are, they were just buying it this morning so they could sell it this afternoon. If I'm a day trader, what's going on right now ought to be what's most important to me.
Yeah. I think that Airbnb, once people get used to the concept, the more people use it, the more people will feel comfortable with it. And if you're going for a week or more, especially, it's going to be so attractive, because it's a beautiful thing to have an entire house with your own swimming pool when you're on vacation, instead of having to share the pool with someone else. If you're having a multi-generational family or a few couples together, something like that, and they're such great storytellers. And look how they're doing what they're doing with spending so much less money on advertising, according to what Robert shared, something like 11% on advertising, on marketing, rather than what was it, 32% for 32, 33, I can't remember, Robert, for Booking.com. They're doing an amazing job. And I just think it's, as time passes, people will just get used to the idea that it's a safe and fun thing to do.
Well, I think Stu brings a very good point. They are at a juxtaposition as to what is influencing their processes forward. Now that they are a publicly traded company. One thing that I would say in comparison to what they were versus what they are now is there's recourse from the perception of the consumer. When I would go to a Marriott, if I didn't like what I had as an experience at that hotel, and I expressed my disappointment with the hotel and the general manager, if I still didn't feel satisfied that I was listened to or compensated or whatever was my purpose, I felt like there was another entity I could go to, the brand flag that was sitting over the building. Airbnb also had that, where if I had a problem with the host or the property or whatever it was, I dead-ended with the host. There was nobody else to go to. I could go complain to Airbnb, but they legitimately said, we're not a participant in this process for you. We're just a vehicle of communication for you to be able to have this opportunity to stay with the host. If the host doesn't resolve it, there's nothing we're doing. Now I think they're going to be into that context of accountability. They are putting themselves above basically a sign every place that they're doing business with now, and that the consumer will think that they can go to this big company now and say, I was not happy with my experience. And they're going to be facing a choice. Do we work at that level that we now go and talk to the host, or we do to intervene?
They already do. They've been doing that for several years.
But not to the level, I disagree in the sense that not to the level that a brand represents itself as being responsible for.
No, absolutely.
They're a marketplace, right?
Right. It's the same way as you say, well, Booking. That's the classic book direct with Marriott, because you have somebody go, why go to an intermediary? Why would you talk to Expedia or Booking versus? Well, I stayed in Paris and had a horrible hotel. Right. It was just turned out miserably, bed bugs, right? Not a good situation during Easter week, right? The busiest, most full. Booking.com got me into another place. Now I had to spend double, but we got another place, and they basically saved my ass, sort of thing, right? So it's the same sort of thing, right? There's huge structural advantages to hotels, massive structural. The hotel industry has done a horrifically bad job, because I've said this countless numbers of times. The hotel industry deals with disruption using a patented 4-step process. Step 1 is they ignore it. Step 2, when told by individuals like us, hey, you should pay attention to us, they continue to ignore it. Step 3 is they panic, and step 4 is they complain about it. So we are just about to enter stage 4 in the Airbnb saga, right? Because the industry was so blind to it, and my numbers of conversations with H and LA going, hey guys, maybe you should embrace this and put in training programs, and you're the lodging association, and not try to kill it with fire, because having the pity of people trying to make money by selling their extra room versus supporting corporate entities is not going to play well, they didn't do it, right? I mean, and now the industry goes, oh crap, yeah, maybe we should have started looking at that in 2009, 2010.
Stuart, has Robert changed for you? Robert used to be happy-go-lucky, friendly, and he never even had such a potty mouth. Now all of a sudden he comes back from his COVID experience. He's cynical. He's bitter. He's potty mouth.
Never bitter. No, but it's a huge opportunity lost that they could have defended themselves, and they didn't. Right? I mean, they took the stupid, what they thought was the easy approach. Oh, we'll just try to litigate them out of existence. And you're like, come on, guys. Yeah, that's not. Yeah, you better have a much better strategy than do. Yeah.
Richard's in our chat box just to bring up the point too. Richard, of course, I mean, you don't know Richard. Richard Ferraro had been a long-term senior manager within Marriott. He says, I'm not sure what the true or legal relationship is with Airbnb and individual host, but Flags have a very strict and tough legal relationship that is actually licensing and licensor, which is, as he says, very tight. So an answer to our conversation about Airbnb's potential engagement and so forth. So anyways, to that end, not that we just, because Stuart loves talking about Airbnb all day long, can't get himself enough of that. And that's an inside joke from the fact that Stuart hates the fact that we highlight Airbnb, which he feels should not be highlighted simply
we created the monster ourselves.
Absolutely.
We promoted it more than they did. The reason they have 93% of their bookings come direct is because folks like us are talking about it all the time.
But since we do have Robert, and he did do a wonderful list, and it is rare that we get him bedside like this, literally.
You guys had 13 hours to ignore the list this time. So yeah.
Yeah. Is there a favorite of your list, Robert, that we
I never pick a favorite amongst the children. You guys
There was a lot about influencers.
There were some. I thought there were a couple. I don't know. Did you want to go for the positive one or the negative? Instagram is, I love a great clickbaity headline. Instagram has sucked the spontaneity out of travel.
I think that influencers and actually social media has done enormous benefit for tourism, because if I didn't see all those beautiful pictures in my inbox every day, I wouldn't be as inspired to go to or build a dream of going to some of these crazy places that just I may just have said, oh, I'll just go to the Caribbean because it's here, but near to the East Coast. But you see incredibly interesting, exotic locations and people doing amazing things. And that is very inspirational. And I may not remember what hotel they were at, but I will start thinking about that country. And also, some people say that if you build a hotel, somewhere that is not a classic destination like London or Paris or whatever, that you have to sell the destination first. But literally, I could see a hotel and a balcony. I can see La Serenus in Positano and say, I have to stay at that hotel. I wasn't thinking about going there, but I have to stay at that hotel because I want to see myself in that picture. And so I think that they do a tremendous good for promoting travel, which brings the world together, and we need that. But if those complaints that were about over tourism and too many influencers going to make the exactly same picture in the exactly same spot, then we need to make sure that those tourism offices are doing a better job promoting outside the central business district, because just like in New York, if you go to anything promoting New York, you're going to see that they're doing their very best to try to include Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx, and even Staten Island.
Yeah. Some of the over tourism though is legitimate though. I mean, because the crushing crowds in Venice, especially when you'd have, not just the tourists who are there, but cruise ships coming in and dumping off 2,000, 3,000 people in droves. Not a great consumer experience. So a lot of the local jurisdictions have to figure out. Barcelona has been very aggressive. How do you limit numbers of tourists so you don't kill? The same thing they have to go through with Airbnb to make sure that these just aren't empty rental units with nobody living in the neighborhoods, which destroy the neighborhoods, which make these cities great, right? So all these local jurisdictions are going to have to figure those things out to keep killing. Yes, you can go destroy Costa Rica if the Costa Rican government wasn't so aggressive at protecting what they have. So,
Stuart, I try to keep out Airbnb, but Robert keeps on trying to bring it in.
Airbnb can be
but to the influencer conversation, I think you make an incredibly excellent point, Adele. But it is a fine line. There is the aspect that if you centralize too much on the bulk of what's the most popular thing to point out to, the Spanish Steps, the fountains, the David, if you're going to go to Florence and so forth, set. But the neat part of it is that what we forget is that we have the ability to create segmentation demographically and of interest now. And we have the ability to highlight off the beaten path stuff or uniquely interesting to certain categories of people. The other edge to that sword is you can get too granular and too a-specific of an audience when you're looking for influencers, and you can miss larger opportunities or other opportunities because you're focusing on what you think you want to come in your door rather than what would be willing to come into your door, which is, it's a strange word of saying it, but there's a big difference between selling just to the people you want compared to the people that would be really interested in what you have. And going for influencers, we should actually have a training on how to vet, find, work with, dialogue, and define what an influencer does for you. And it's not just the contract. Robert, you had a phenomenal presentation at HSMEI.
3 years ago.
Okay, I was not going to throw your age into this, but now that you mention it,
not a lot of hotels doing that stuff, though.
Right. Where you can go wrong with just hiring somebody that, and it goes beyond the vetting of what their audience is. Are they engaged, not engaged? Are they a proper size and improper size? Are they demographically correct? There's lots of nuances to what it is that would define who you're going to talk to. Beyond that is your own self-bias as to whom you think you should be talking to. Being open to what things like Stuart and Melissa do all the time. You're talking about finding the markets that are interested to listen to what you have to say, not the markets that you're thinking you want to talk to. All too often when you create marketing campaigns, you start with where you think you want the business to be from, only to realize that that's just a fragment or an aspect of a whole other series of people that want to know what you have to say as well, and you create marketing variations to them as well. It goes back to the old adage, the owner always wanted the picture of his building. He's the only one that wanted the picture of his building. Nobody else cares what the freaking building looks like. What they want to know is what the room is and what the comment, not the porte cochere. It's like, come on. So because of that, the influencer thing is very powerful because people will perceive us as being very biased. If we keep talking about all the stuff cool around our hotel, people are smart. They know we're saying that because we want you to stay at our hotel. Influencers have a broader capability of referring to your hotel and the value of it in comparison to all the stuff that people are interested in what they have to say, knowing that the hotel is just a component of that. And it gives them a nice, relatively neutral bias in their dialogue compared to potentially the perceived bias of a hotel saying that about themselves.
Well, and if you could do it like a campaign, like a true campaign, right? Because what you want to do, it's not the influencer, it's the influencer's followers, right? Of what you're going to do. So what are the call? Is it just we want a picture of this person in front of the building or whatever they're doing? No, what's the experience that they're doing? And can you get those followers to register to win that experience so they can have, breakfast on the suite overlooking the Eiffel Tower at the Shangri-La or whatever it is in Paris, right?
Well, you're building your database.
Right.
Well,
and all of a sudden you have people doing and going, hey, this is great because they saw the picture of the influencer, they did it, and now you can experience it too. Because that's where the real power of these influencers is, to really say, hey, I'm introducing this. You trust my stuff and what I do, and I can help you maybe win this experience. Then you start getting a really beneficial relationship. And
there's an influencer that everyone should focus on, and it's not someone with a bazillion YouTube followers or Instagram followers. It's your guest. The guest
Right.
is the best influencer you have.
Yeah.
I think we all get caught up, and Lauren, you're as guilty of this as anyone. This is why I always tease you about it. Like, people get so squirrel about the latest, greatest thing. And although we've been talking about influencers for 4 or 5 years now, and it's really an extension of what has been going on with celebrity endorsement for years, we got to get back to the fundamentals of word of mouth advertising. And that's why, I always rave about Flip2 as a platform, and Ed's not on here right now, but taking every guest, making sure you're focused on turning them into an influencer, turn them into an advocate by making sure they have a great experience, and then not having to pay a penny to encourage them to then go and tell their family and friends about the stay, is the best influencer marketing you can do. And it's twofold, right? Because one, once you turn your guest into your secret army to go and promote the quality product that you have, you also are collecting new content that then can be used in all of your advertising. And I was just looking at some results. Myrtle Beach as a destination, we're going through some rebranding, and we did some focus groups recently on some new brand anthems and some just new messaging. And we started really incorporating some of the authentic photos that came from our Flip2 submissions and showing real people enjoying Myrtle Beach. And the overwhelming response from the focus groups was, this is great. I can see me in this. These look like real people enjoying the beach, not some polished, over-published thing, overproduced thing. So before you go spending $1,000 or trading some room for comping a room for some wannabe blogger, focus on your guests. That's the best influence.
Yeah. Crowd riff is wonderful too, by the way. You can make beautiful, you get to use the pictures that people made of your hotel or tagged in about your hotel on your website, and make custom galleries on various, like, here are wedding photos that were taken, and we have their permission to use them, and they're much more moving. Those lifestyle photos are much more moving than any professional photography we could pay for.
They're authentic.
They're real. They're real.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Stuart, that I now call it the Stuart disclaimer whenever I talk about whiz bang toys. I say, before trying this at home, boys and girls, and I do this.
Remember what Uncle Stewie says. He says,
Uncle Stewie says, do your block and tackle first, boys and girls. Don't try this at home. But all that being said, I do think that there might be a transition of terminology that will eventually happen, that talking about your guests as being influencers is valid and accurate, but I also think that they can be translated into a conversation of advocacy.
Yeah,
that's
that's how Flip2 describes them, as advocates. But it's two sides of the same coin, really. It is. They don't influence as many people, but you better believe that every guest you have has a circle of influence. They influence their friends, their family, their coworkers.
It's just right now we refer to influencers as having an audience that is different in scope than the average, circle of friends that you have. Although you influence your friends, absolutely. So the terminology, as you said, is interchangeable to some degree. But to keep the difference between chasing someone down that has an audience specific to what they're pursuing as their content compared to
there's multiple dimensions to that, right? Because you've got the volume of the audience, but you've also got the strength of connection in the audience. And
yes,
so
that's a critical component. Actually,
you might have a like 10,000 people that follow you on Instagram, but how connected are you really? How influential are you on the decisions? So there's a multiplier of size versus strength of relationship that is important.
Another good thing about using the guests that you have in the hotel as your influencers is that's the kind of person that likes your hotel already. And, it's not necessarily the 20 and 30 somethings that are asking to be at the hotel. And very often I'd have some 20 something begging me for a hotel, a stay at the Casablanca Hotel. And I don't have guests like that. I have mature guests. I have unpretentious guests. And I really need, that senior or middle-aged couple or family that looks like, everybody. That is the kind of person that I want to see, because that's what other people are going to relate to. When they see the 20-something pictures in the hotel, those young people that are seeing that are not going to come to the Casablanca, because that's not, it's not designy enough for them, or you know what I mean? It's
Yeah, and you
just
can in fact
attracting the wrong
alienate
audience.
existing guests if you do that. If you have the wrong
Right.
mix of influences.
And especially true right now with COVID being what it is, of course. Every hotelier under the sun has got a something on their page talking about COVID and how they're being careful and taking all these steps and doing all these things. You know what? Read the reviews. Read the consumer reviews. What did the guests who stayed there say about it? And I'll use a really good example. I'm going to promote a hotel, actually. I stayed about a year ago in a Home 2 Suites down in Addison, Texas. And I tell you what, I reviewed this hotel. It was like hospital grade sterile clean. I mean, it was so unbelievably clean. If I was going back to Addison, Texas right now, in a heartbeat, that's exactly the place I was going to stay in. And that's what I'm going to look for, is what did other people say about that property?
I want to interject something that's near and dear to what stirred a nice conversation from times past: ADA compliance and special needs travelers. Advocacy can translate into uniqueness of travel. Having and engaging with people that can give a particular unique experience relationship as to what you've done for them in behalf of what it is that is of value to them, it goes a long way into the communities that they're connected to. You talk about advocacy and influencing. We've talked about this many times on the show, where those that have special requirements during travel, keeping communities to each other. They were the original social media. You know, if you had something that was concerning to you when you traveled, you knew like-minded people, and with their references and recommendations guided your travel, knowing that that hotel accommodated your needs, like a refrigerator for insulin or whatever, that those things were there. And this is a chance, because of the cool technology that Stuart poo-poos on me on. There's cool technology out there that allows you to really help with the engagement of those people to work with and then share what it is you're doing. And, you know, as simple as it is, Stuart, there's a video program and stuff that you can put hotspots on that talks through ADA compliance, so that it actually helps the visual engagement for those that are visually impaired, to be able to know what the videos and navigation of what the video can be helping you with. That was a sidebar stuff I didn't even realize with that platform I was talking about on podcast a couple weeks ago, Interceptor, where the hotspots of click this to go here, click this for this, or this is in the picture, click here, really helped the ADA value of it for people that now, it wasn't just a picture of a sunny sunset. It was like, no, this is a picture of the lobby, and click here for the sanitation, click here for the elevator. They got a sense of stuff that the picture was interpreting for them without having to see it. And I thought it was pretty cool. So technology helps.
Technology. I just want people to do the things in order of, impact versus excitement level.
The Stewie disclaimer, yes, and that thou shalt first do CRM and it's SEO and yes, of course.
Yeah. There are caveats to that, right? So the point you make about accessibility, it's I think that's something you should do, right? That's a responsibility that every hotelier should have, to make sure that there's no discrimination going on because of someone's disability. So I think there are certain things that maybe don't on paper offer the return, but they're just the right thing to do. So I do agree in that case that you should be doing that.
And you should be having pictures of things that can actually be experienced in the home, not fake stuff.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also, you don't have to highlight the most popular aspects of your location. A lot of times you can highlight. I mean, that's the one thing and this goes back almost a year, when Google started introducing the local reviews for your hotel on their mobile platform that rated you according to your proximity to things. You had no control over that, because it literally knew the geographic location of you based on the geographic location of something that they thought the user was interested in, and gave them a score as to how close you were in proximity to them for that value. And you couldn't just say, I'm going to add that into my schema or add that into my content and to influence that rating system. That was something Google did for the user that you really didn't have an influence on, because it already had the static data for it. So in fair terms, yay! It's Evan, as quickly as you can see, 2 hours can go by pretty quickly too.
He's like, man, I wish I dropped off after the 45 minutes.
Exactly.
There's a few announcements I do want to make with some things. We have started up the We Are Hospitality, which is now Monday through Thursday, with the exception now starting next week on Wednesdays. Wednesdays, we're going to start what I hope is to be something fun, which is called Pitch It. For lack of a better word, because I'm going to actually ask the Quarantini today, Stuart, what if they have a better name for it, and if it is, we'll announce it in the show notes. But the idea of Pitch It is everybody has 5 minutes, whether they're looking for a job, whether they have a service skill that they're trying to offer, a product they're trying to offer. They have 5 minutes to do an elevator pitch of what they're doing. And then when we record everything, they can use the recording for whatever they want to do for self-promotion, but also hopefully get in front of the audiences that follow us on the live show and follow us on the podcast. So it'll be bit.ly/pitch it. Unless another name comes up at the end of our fun Quarantini call today. So if you know of anybody that you think is looking for a job that wants to pitch what they can do, or if they have a product or services, obviously Adele, Dean, all of us are going to be on there talking about what we do anyway, to give a chance to put in front of people that we can record. But that's something that's going to happen on Wednesdays. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday is We Are Hospitality. It's an open dialogue at noon Eastern for anybody that just wants to come and talk about anything. It's not a broadcast show. It's just a chance to see other people's faces on the screen.
And we need to warn people, Lauren, before they come on, that it's going to be 5 minutes of them pitching, 10 minutes of us talking over them and telling them things that they know and pretend we're experts on their subject. And
of course,
20 minutes of rambling. So that, I mean, it's
30 minutes rambling. You sell yourself short. I have no idea the full format other than we're just going to ask for 5 minutes, somebody to give what they say. And then I'm going to make sure that they get the recording of it. After that, I have no clue how it's going to form out.
It'll go off the rails. So speaking of going off the rails, there's a topic that I mentioned to you, Lauren, that I wanted to bring up and just kind of put a thought out there into the ether, as it were, and see where it goes. But like we're potentially coming up to the final chapter of COVID, right? In terms of there's countries, UK, for example, already deploying vaccinations. US will probably start within the next 7 days deploying vaccinations. And there's a lot of noise about the subject, right? There's a lot of difference of opinions, some of which seem to be falling down political lines similar to the mask debate in, and I think, and I'm talking about US specifically when I say this, we've probably not done the best job as a country navigating this situation because of the differing opinions and different information, right? I would put it out there that the vaccination and the successful deployment of vaccination is the single, and it's the only path to recovery, period, for the hospitality industry. There is no other light at the end of the tunnel other than us all coming together and rooting for successful vaccination deployment, period. I mean, there's no argument to that. If we don't successfully vaccinate enough people in this country and around the world, then hospitality will be devastated for another 12 months and beyond. This virus is clearly not going away, and we cannot get back to any kind of normality in our lives until the vast majority of people are vaccinated, probably 80% plus, or at a minimum, everyone that is at risk, right? So regardless of you or my personal opinions, I think we all need to do a couple of things. One, we need to educate ourselves in a mindful way, right? Forget about your biases, forget about your informational sources. Spend the time to educate yourself, not based on opinion, but based on science and fact, and not based on what the rhetoric is of your soup du jour of news outlets today, right? Spend the time to really educate yourself, because any flippant comment that you've made or will make about vaccinations, like you may have about masks, about whether they work or not, is detrimental. Every person that doesn't get vaccinated, once it's safe and you're comfortable that it's safe and not being reckless, every single person that doesn't get vaccinated is just delaying recovery for hospitality. So if you love hospitality, if you want hospitality to get back on board, you have to be a part of this. And it starts with education. And then at the point where you feel like it's not a blind faith, reckless decision to get vaccinated and your family get vaccinated, go get vaccinated as soon as you can. and share that. Put it on your social channels. Show everyone else that you are going to be a leader in this, and encourage everyone else to do the same. If we all go do that, if we all get vaccinated at the appropriate time, once we know it's safe, and we all share that, and we all continue to do that with that, we've all got supercomputers in our pockets that we can take selfies, take videos, share that to the world. We're going to encourage more people. In this industry that we love is always been about putting other people before ourselves. That's the spirit of hospitality. And if we do that here with vaccinations, we're going to have a good 2021. If we choose not to, if we choose to fall prey to misinformation and fear, yes, it's inconvenient. Yes, there are side effects. Yes, there are a lot of potential risks. But if we fall prey to that and let that dictate our actions, we're not recovering, period. So we have a choice to make as an industry, and I hope we make the right one. I hope it's the one that puts us on a path to recovery. So I'm going to step off my soapbox, but it's something I'm very, very passionate
but
about.
cannot agree more. And why the hospitality industry, which has ample empty meeting space and rooms, ample cold storage, and things like that, hasn't stepped up to say, how can we help solve this through vaccinations, through that sort of thing? Lauren, it seems like in March we had a webinar where we were begging some leaders of the some major associations within the hospitality industry to really get aggressive and to step up, not just on, oh, we're cleaning rooms and things like that, but what you can do to actually actively protect people, support testing, supporting local hospital and healthcare and public health outcomes. That's what you have to do, because let me tell you, my watchword for 2021 is going to be patience, folks. Just because there's a vaccine, that is not a magic wand that just goes everywhere and everybody gets it in a nice uniform manner and all rolls out. I mean, they were already saying, hey, we're going to have these millions of doses by the end of the year. What's happened? 4 weeks out, they said, hey, little bit of delay. We're probably about 8 weeks behind schedule. Well, that's a 3-month gap, right, from where they were. So it's not going to be necessarily that smooth. And yes, by June-ish, that sort of thing, things will be okay. There will be people who are wealthy and are well connected who can certainly will get this stuff earlier, and there are going to be massive swaths of other people, which may include a large number of employees and things like that, who, yes, is a housekeeper a frontline essential worker? Are they going to be at the front row of getting these vaccines? Perhaps not. And again,
I feel bad that you weren't in England, because if you were in England, you would have been the first vaccinated person based on your age.
Well, that's true, sort of thing. But again, no, it's going to be a problem.
97, but who's counting?
Yeah, but you need broad distribution of this stuff. It's not just these things start rolling out, right? I mean, it's got to be everybody's got it, and they've gotten 2 doses, right? And my worry is everybody's going to stop going, there's a vaccine. We don't care. We're at the end of the tunnel. It's all done. And all of a sudden the testing stops and the contact tracing stops and all that. And
when the discipline stops, right? The social distancing stops.
I've been quarantined for 2 weeks. I went to a grocery store last night for the first time. Nobody wiping down carts. No hand sanitizer at the entrance. No hand sanitizer at the checkout counter. All that stuff's gone. Right? Yep. They just aren't doing any of it. And let me tell you, in Dallas, there is a nice, big, healthy spike in cases.
Oh, don't disregard the fact that more people died yesterday in the U.S. than everybody did in 9/11.
Yeah. There's somebody put together a chart of the largest catastrophe. This is like one of the most depressing charts you've seen of like what's happened. And then you go, yes, and they outlined each individual day of the thousands of deaths.
The third worst, actually the 4th worst now. And of the top 10, 8 of them are COVID days, and 6 of them are in the past 7 days.
Right. So here's the problem, right? There's people watching this that are going to be like, but I don't believe those numbers. That's fake. The numbers are inflated, blah, 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 blah.
Fuck you.
Fuck you. I'm going to take a slightly different approach, right?
Robert after this. He's turning potty mouth.
Regardless of your personal opinions about the reality that we live in, the fact of the matter is, without successful deployment in a mass scale of vaccinations, restrictions are not going to be lifted. and people
Right.
are not going to travel. Fear is going to override their willingness to travel. So if you love the hospitality industry, if you want to get your career back on track, your business back on track, the only path forward you have is to embrace vaccinations. It's the period. It's the only thing, regardless of your personal
Public
opinion.
health outcomes have to precede the economy is an output. It's not an input, right?
Correct.
You just don't say everybody go do everything normally and it will be great. It does not work like that.
Well, keeping it tangible, the fact that, you know, Robert, you've had it, and today our thoughts and
Hey,
prayers.
my aunt died of it, and she was living in the monastery. She shouldn't have gone. I still don't know how I got it. I think I got it like at a grocery store, and I mean washing hands, doing all that sort of thing, not doing anything reckless,
For
right?
right now,
I
And
thought your
you can't.
daughter had it.
Yeah.
Did she not?
What? Oh no,
Did you-
well, no, actually, yeah. I mean, and I was very lucky the first round. My daughter got it from her boyfriend, who got it from his mother, who got it from a friend of the, I mean, all these people being super careful. It was the one careless friend. I sat next to my daughter for 6 hours on election night with three cushion sofa, my wife on one side, my daughter in the middle, and we did not get it from her. Right. And she tested positive on a rapid test. We just lucked out. So quarantined for 2 weeks. There was literally a 3-day gap there where I didn't go nuts and just go do it. We barely went anywhere. We went to like a Brahms ice cream place to get like a frozen yogurt. We did a little bit of like grocery shopping, and that was it. And then all of a sudden, 4 days later, I got it. And again, I have no idea where. I didn't do anything reckless. It wasn't that I didn't wash my hands or do whatever, but whatever happened, I got it, right? And
right now,
how it goes.
and that says keep our thoughts and prayers with Ben's wife, who's suffering from COVID right now. Ben's
Oh,
normally
no.
and
Yeah.
he is right now unable to join us because he's taking care of his wife and keeping the kids separate over here, the wife taking care of here. He's trying to stay separate. They're in lockdown in England.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's like, oh, you know, I can go outside. You know, he's juggling this stuff. You know, I know that I was just looking back up, you know, Glenn Hausman from Noland, the president, vice president, was it president or president? I forget. CEO. He was CEO. He passed away. COVID complication. There's effect. There's real tangible. It's not a matter of, oh, I know somebody or don't know somebody. Here we have somebody on the screen with us. You know, it is not whether you believe the numbers or not. It's to what you just said, Stuart. If we're going to expect any sort of positive results in our industry, you got to jump on board with this. You can't say how politically I'm expressing my. Then don't go outside. Stay home. Just stay.
And you've got to be proactive about it, right? Because there's this alarming statistic that 46% of American adults are not planning on getting the vaccination at this point.
Right.
Like that's their position. And we as marketers need to do a job of marketing this thing. And one of the things we can all do is be good role models and make it normal and make it socially unacceptable not to get it, right? If we are all saying, hey, we encourage everyone to get vaccinated and look, hey, I'm getting it, it's fine. I think that's going to go a long way to turning a lot of people.
I think what numbers also change as the data starts coming in too. People start getting vaccinated. Knock on wood, the numbers start going down. The line graphs all start going down, and you can relate one to the other. Sooner or later, it's just a no-brainer. Guys, look, it works, and then you just kind of have to.
But you
But
still
guy
have
that's
to get
putting-
about 70%. You have to get 70% of the people
Yeah.
basically in a situation where they've been vaccinated. Because again, people are getting it. It's a coronavirus, right? They don't know enough about will it come back? Will it mutate? Will it be, different sort of thing? It may work a lot. Not, it's very different from the flu, but it may be, hey, it comes back in different variety every year, and they got to reformulate the vaccine and go give you a shot, things like that. But again, it's not just going to be, oh, it went away and we're fine, and I'll let everybody else get the shots and I don't have to do it, because
Don't be
that only happens with 50%. You're still going to have these, you're going to have people getting sick, and it's still going, and people aren't going to go out to restaurants and do all the normal things that get you back to normal.
I mean, we walk between, now that the weather's been nice, we walk from our place where we live to our office that we have. That's our trend. We're only in two places. I do everything curbside. I don't even go into stores now. I just literally order everything curbside as much as I don't like doing that because I love to shop. Can't do it. But I've also been the one that doesn't say something to somebody that's not wearing a mask. When we walk by, we put our masks on to make sure that we stay away. Even outside, we have our masks on as we're walking over. And when we started walking by people that didn't have masks, we just kept as far away as we could off the sidewalk from them or stepped away so they could walk by. I've even stopped that. I'm just like, guys, dude, where's your mask? And then, I get some nasty comments back, and I'm like, I'm twice your size. I will kick your ass.
There you go. Silence, Lauren. That's what we need.
But I'm getting to the point now where I'm actually pointing out to people, it's like, come on, put your mask on, What's up with you? Why are you not wearing masks? What idiocy
Here's what I don't want to happen, though, right? We're conflating masks and vaccinations, and we can't do that because it's going to end up in the same divisive place. We've got to separate the conversations and say, vaccinations are our path forward, period. Yeah. Regardless of whether you're a moron with masks or not, then you need to embrace vaccinations.
Very true.
It's
very
the
true.
only path forward. And
I think
we
will take it from this
but
point.
you somewhat have to do both, though. In that interim period, people are still going to have to wear masks.
But here's the thing. If you're not wearing a mask today, you're never going to wear a mask. We're not going to change people's minds on that. We have a shot.
It might change in mid-January. Give it 3 weeks after Christmas.
Maybe. That's not a battle I want to fight anymore. I'm exhausted from that battle. But the vaccination battle is a new battle that is the path to complete recovery. Yeah. Masks is a stem the flow, help, but it doesn't stop the virus completely. Yeah. You start getting the ERs overrun and 5,000 deaths a day and things like that. Yeah. Not that I'm. Don't get me wrong. Everyone should wear a mask, but if they're not, then
that'll start getting more people's attention when again more people they know die and things like that. And again, the negative public health outcome is going to be all these. Basically emergency rooms and ICUs tied up with all these COVID patients. So, I mean, in Dallas, elective surgeries are now suspended, right?
Well, look at what's happening in Arizona. They're actually complaining. They're actually looking at the fact of what's called critical care assessment. You come into the hospital if you look like you have a chance of surviving, you'll be treated. If you look like you may not be able to survive, they refuse treatment. They're life and death decisions people are making. And to me, I don't know whether it's just because of age or whatever like this, when I see, unfortunately, those refrigerated trucks where there's people bagged up, I think of a family member. How would I feel if my family member was treated like that? How can
it's
you
like battlefield triage? It's a shame.
And that's what and they have to make more of those decisions get made once you get up to 120% capacity of your ICU or
even just so much. Even last night, when the newscasters kind of just went through the death numbers and they did it almost with a quasi smile, like they're just reading a teleprompter, which was what they were. The backlash on social media was profound. How do you think that you can just talk about one of my cousins was one of those numbers today? I mean. They just because the reality is beginning to hit home for a lot of people, realizing that these aren't just numbers. Right. It's not just X number of people getting sick or whatever have you. And then we start talking to people that are sick and they're going through the actual reality of it. You hurt for them because it's like there's nothing you can do. You can't go over and bring them chicken soup. You can't go over and do something for it because you don't even want. You can't. You're jeopardizing yourself by trying to be that helpful. So it's tough things. Anyway, wow. Okay. Hey,
sorry to be so heavy. We need to finish on
a mission statement from now forward. Every time we have the chance talking about making sure everyone gets vaccinated, anything we can do to be, let's take
we have a platform which is influential. We need to use it. I plan on using the podcast to do the same.
Yeah. Anyone that has a platform, put in my podcast from now forward as we go with this. And again,
Can we tie in one article? The rut row is normally a negative, but I think it ties into Evan's whole thing. There is an all-you-can-drink tequila train. And I'm pissed off that we only found out about this in the last week of December. This could have changed 2020 for all of us.
Indeed.
First off,
we didn't know about it, but now you do.
Thought about it yourself, Robert. And two, hello, what do you think everybody's been doing this whole time? They just haven't been.
They just didn't. I wasn't following the right influencers, obviously.
You have not been following the recipe guide to your best margarita. That's right there.
All you can drink tequila train, folks. What could go wrong? So,
Nothing, absolutely nothing at this point. Nothing could go worse than what it is. All right. So with all that in mind, we'll start with Evan. Evan first. Again, if people want to know more about you and where to find you, where can they do this?
They can find me on my website, evankharrazi.com, EVANKHARRAZI. I also have a private Facebook group for overworked professionals. It's a self-care for overworked professionals group. And I'm on Instagram, Facebook, the normal.
Outstanding. Evan, thank you very much for spending not only the early time with us going through talking with you, but also all this other time where you stayed with us and went through all this conversation dialogue with us. Thank you
we
very
didn't
much.
talk enough about dance. Sorry. It's too bad.
Dean, sir, more about Basecamp Meta Metasearch Marketing.
Absolutely. So Basecamp Meta, if you're looking to start a meta search program, and whether you're a digital agency or a hotelier, and you need to educate yourself and or your staff about what meta search is, what it does, and about how to run those campaigns, we have an educational series at basecampmeta.com. You'll find an education learning series there that can teach you all about that. If you are somebody who needs help running the campaign, go to metasearchmarketing.com. We provide a platform agnostic consultative service. Try saying that really fast several times. And we'll give you the straight up as to, hey, is this going to benefit you? What should you expect from it? How can you succeed with it? Taking that a step further, if you are a small hotel, 10-room bed and breakfast in Omaha, Nebraska, that has never been able to run it because you don't have the technology stack, we can solve that problem for you. Won't go into all those details, but reach out to us and we can help you with those things.
Don't forget your podcast.
Oh, yes, and our podcast. We actually just had one that we did with Adele that just came out earlier this week, in fact, talking about how your guest feedback and your reputation will impact your, not just your meta search campaigns, but really all of your marketing campaigns, how those tie together. And all, by the way, I should also mention too, that going back to the small Google for small hotels, free for 30 days. So you have the opportunity to see what the data looks like.
Adele, speaking of you.
I too have a hospitality reputation marketing podcast to join with Dean's podcast and Lauren's hospitality marketing podcast and Holly's hospitality sales podcast and Lily's hospitality reputation revenue management podcast. So just look for that. We're all active, and I'm so excited to be a part of it. I had a wonderful interview yesterday with Shep Hyken, such an inspiring author of a book called Amaze Every Customer Every Time, and many, many other books. I hope that you'll go visit. I put a link to the podcast, but you can just Google Hospitality Reputation Marketing Podcast and you will see it there. And I also have a website, aspirereputationmarketing.com. And I am offering for a limited time, going to continue to offer a free reputation assessment and an initial consultation to help you connect the dots if you're a hotelier or a restaurateur. Actually, I did a presentation to doctors, so I can do that for you as well, to help you connect the dots between the reviews you have and how to close the gap between what you say about yourself and what your guests actually say about you. And that will, as we discussed earlier today, also help with your culture and retaining your employees as well as your guests. So I have a lot of fun with it, and I hope you'll take advantage of my offer.
Melissa, we know that you're the operation behind the award-winning podcast of Fuel Travel. We know that, you know, Stuart takes credit for way more than he should. But if people, and are you coming on the show next week to talk about the recent survey that you guys are doing?
It is not quite ready yet.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably the week after.
Wait.
Okay, that's okay. We're gonna have a special co-host next week too. Claudia Infante from VP of Margaritaville. She has an organizational thing for women in business. Which Adele, please be there. Melissa, I would love it if you could be there too. The rest of us can, you know, just hang off in the wings. I'm trying to get the all girl power thing going next week, and be like, you all just talk to her. But anyway, Fuel Travel podcast. What, Melissa?
You can find all the things about fuel, including the award-winning fuel podcast at fueltravel.com. You can also find anything about our app and our CRM system and our booking engine that doesn't suck.
That is actually the
They've
logo.
set the bar right there.
It really is. I mean, all joking aside, the vast majority of booking engines on the market suck. Period. Go
Yes.
listen to what episode was it? I forget. We did a whole episode on does your booking engine suck? The answer is yes, unless you're using ass. But
And Stuart, I mean, to that point, I mean, I don't know whether you guys have the same advertisement for these eggs up there, but it has it where these eggs are not free range or something, so it's no bullshit eggs. I mean, but they do the bullshit, but they put the stars on. Have you seen that commercial yet at all?
I have not.
Yeah, I think you should go for the whole truth and candor in marketing. A
Mhm.
booking engine that doesn't suck should be your slogan logo. Like, just put it up there. But
We
anyway,
say it a lot in jest, but we haven't gotten to where it's on a collateral.
I think you should lean into it.
Yeah, we might.
Yeah.
It sounds like what a fueligan would do.
So Stuart, other than all the cool stuff Melissa's doing, what are you doing?
Yeah, what she said. Fueltravel.com is the mothership. Fueltravel.com/podcast, or just search for Hotel Marketing Podcast anywhere, and you'll get us. Fuel Hotel Marketing Podcast.
And
I
do you
feel
wanna
left out because I'm not part of the hospitality podcast group. You know? We're over
well,
here on our own, doing our own
It's the
thing.
Cool Kids Club, and then there's
Yeah, I'm not cool enough.
yeah. But if you want to talk about the Mandalorian, you just go reach out to Stuart. He'll talk to you all day.
And since Disney announced 10 new Star Wars shows in the next 10 years, I think
Oprah's getting her own
my job and never show up on this show again because I'm just going to do nothing but consuming Star Wars content.
Mr. Robert, next time take the handcuffs out the back of the banister, just so there's no backdrop for him.
Well, that took a turn.
Exactly. Lauren apparently furnishes his bedroom differently than mine. I don't know. Rockcheetah.com, Robert K. Cole on social media, or if you'd like to get a weekly newsletter of news items, which every once in a while will have the actual news article correspond with the headline for it. But periodically, yeah, oops, that was a little bit of an oops. But with that, you can go to bit.ly/rockcheetah, all lowercase.
It's an excellent newsletter, incredibly well curated. It is the mainstay of our content and our fallback to everything. And the detriment is we don't always get to all the articles, but they are well worth a review and so
How
forth.
else would you find out about the tequila train?
That in itself is worth the price of admission.
Actually, the Boop, which is kind of the uplifting one, was Condé Nast did come out with their 2021 gold list, which was always nice to look through some
Robert,
those hotels. Yeah.
Do you remember Slope Day at Cornell?
I do. I was actually on the Cornell Concert Commission for the first Slope Day with the Pretenders. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Robert goes back to when they first dug the spade in just after they got off the Mayflower, and they built the first little log cabin for Cornell.
So Evan, are you familiar with Robbie Moore? He's a dancer. I think he's mostly out of Antwerp and Houston now. Any chance you've run across Robbie Moore? He was at Juilliard. I think a couple of years older than you probably. But my daughter used to dance with him. Or Joe Selledge, great choreographer, or Andrew Winghart, who's now Andrew's pretty big in LA. He's doing a lot of videos. He does things on So You Think You Can Dance and things like that.
Wow.
So yeah, my daughter used to dance with a lot of those folks.
I did a summer at Juilliard, and I think Robbie Moore was one of our chaperones.
He very well may have been. Yeah, he's probably a couple years older than me. A great guy, really nice guy. Yeah, it was
we get dancing all of a sudden. Okay, so for replay of this show and all previous 278 of them, by all means, please go to hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. Look for it. We also have our podcast there as well. Next week will be, as I mentioned, Claudia Infante, the VP of Margaritaville, which she'll be talking about Women in Business. It's a charity organization that she's working with. I'm going to try to get Kat back. I'm going to try to get Tracy on with us. All the women that we've had that have had the same kind of genre of going forward conversation. They're all working in the same space, trying to develop. Because one thing that we have to be mindful of, out of all those that we lost in hospitality industry recently, from everything that's going on, the vast majority, I can't remember the statistic, but it's a staggeringly painful one. The loss has been female.
Oh yeah.
Industry.
Yeah, the ratio, it's like, I don't know the exact number. It's been like 2/3 or something like that.
Yeah,
It's
a
really
very large portion of the people that we lost within our industry are females, and gosh knows that is the last entity of people in our organization that we need because of the most influential to positive progress. So this whole push towards women in business and cultivating them and being able to give them opportunities and so forth is I think just as valuable of a dialogue. So that's next week with Claudia Infante. So it should be a fun conversation. And so please help me rally people around it. And from now on, we all promise that everything we try to do moving forward will be a positive influence on vaccination. Stuart, thank you. That is a very important point to bring forward from this conversation.
Great question. Will Ed be on the show next week to be the counterpoint that everything went to hell when women got the vote back in the 1920s? Is that, I don't know.
Well, we got away with it
Ed's
this
pretty
time.
staunch about that,
Early,
right?
so maybe we can get away with it again next week.
Yeah,
maybe yeah. Suffrage. I think he's going to go for the suffrage angle.
I think so. I'm pretty sure that's been one of Ed's things for years, right, Stuart?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
In fact, when the Stop the Steal movement started, it had actually previously been Ed. He was thinking that women were stealing jobs from men. He thought
that's right. I remember that now. Come to think, early 2020. You're right.
Yeah.
Virginia just popped up. She said New York just shut down in-room dining on Monday. Wow. Wow. That's a death dagger to a lot of people because I mean a lot of those restaurants are not built for anything. Delivery is about delivery, but not even be able to get into the place to woof.
Yeah.
Everybody go to Gold's Belly and start ordering food from some other state.
Is that not a cool site or what? Gold Belly is awesome. You can buy crazy stuff on Gold Belly. Not that I have, mind you, at all, because
you've got the most gold of all.
Holistically balancing my diet. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Evan, again for joining us, and we'll see everyone next week, next 11:30 Eastern U.S. time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.